Hey guys, welcome to Sinnoh Extras. This is a new format I'm introducing alongside my main Sinnoh series where I'm building the entire Pokemon region in Cities Skylines 2. Sinnoh Extras will feature different types of episodes, some will be recurring, others more experimental, but the goal is to fill in the schedule with extra content while I work on refining my major builds. Today's episode is all about trams, specifically the grass tram line in Jubilife City. Initially, I planned to cover the entire tram network of Jubilife, but as usual I got deep into detailing, so today we are focusing on this one line. We will start by upgrading the tram line, specifically working on its stops, overall design, and refining the road layout along the entire route. This will set the standard for how I'll design the remaining two tram lines in future episodes. Then we'll switch to first-person camera mode following a tram as it moves through Jubilife City, giving you a closer look at the city's atmosphere from the street level. I hope you guys will enjoy this new format, and without further ado, let's dive into the build and take a ride through Jubilife City. We'll start with a quick overview of how the grass line runs through Jubilife City, so you get a better idea of its route. The line starts in the southern history district, just at the edge of the residential area. From there, it follows a path parallel to the railroad, stopping once before reaching the first major transport hub where it connects with buses, trains, and the water tram line. Continuing north, it touches the west part of the downtown, stopping at Jubilife Star Stadium, before passing under the railroad into the west part of Elements Park, where the Regional Council of Sinnoh is located as well. It then moves along the University of Jubilife, first passing by its main campus before reaching the Technical Faculty in the north. After it crosses the city main north-south artery, stops at the Central Hospital, and then merges with the Fire Line before reaching its terminus at Kita Station, where it loops back. When I started thinking about the Sinnoh Extras series, there were plenty of areas I could explore, detail, and showcase. I wanted to test the waters and see what people would enjoy the most, and my goal was to combine detailed city building work with immersive first-person rides, and for a while I've been wanting to do tram rides through the Jubilife City network. Back in the main Jubilife City episodes, I developed a fairly extensive tram system consisting of 3 lines, each themed after the traditional starter Pokemon types: grass, water, and fire. The colors also conveniently align with how major transit systems often distinguish their main lines: blue, green, and red, and the whole network was already laid out and operational, but when I started planning first-person tram rides, I felt it needed more refinement. By default, tram lines in Cities Skylines 2 are quite simple. You either lay tracks separately or integrate them into roads, add vanilla stops, and connect the routes. While effective, it felt a bit uninspired, especially given that I had named the lines after Pokemon types. I wanted to differentiate them visually and thematically, making each line a unique experience. I remember a comment from when I first built the system suggesting that I add actual water along the water line, similar to how it's done in Houston, Texas. And that idea stuck with me, and I planned to tackle all 3 lines in this episode. However, after diving into detailing process, I quickly realized it was too much for one video, since my plan also was to keep this relatively shorter than the usual episode lengths I do. So I decided to split it into a 3-part series, dedicating this episode entirely to Grassline. This way I can give each road the attention it deserves while keeping things focused and visually appealing. In the beginning, I wanted to add some surface detailing beneath the tram tracks to reinforce the grassline thematic look, using either tile textures or grass-like surfaces. Then I remembered a mod I've been using more and more recently, the NetLanes extensions. They're essentially surface-based networks that can be placed like roads, but instead of standard asphalt, they allow for various textures like dirt, concrete, or grass, or tiling, and I previously used them a lot in Oreburg coal mines and for certain industrial tracks where I wanted to have more rugged and realistic feel beyond the default game road assets. For this build, I applied a grassy looking net lane to cover most of the grassline tram route, creating a seamless green corridor. In areas where roads merge or cross the tram tracks, I switched to a slightly concrete textured net lane with subtle grassy elements. This way, cars would still pass over pavement, but the grass theme would remain visually present. The second major upgrade was the tram stops themselves. When I first designed the waterline, I introduced pergolas as a signature feature for its stops, reinforcing the water theme while making them more visually appealing. I decided to extend this approach across all three tram lines, each with its own unique styling. And for the grass line, I added planters behind the stops, filled with either flowers or bushes along the benches to make them feel more welcoming. While I followed a consistent design language, I also wanted each stop to have a slight individuality. Some stations stick closely to the standard layout, while others required more adjustments based on their surroundings. Like for this terminus stop, I didn't want just to create a standard loop and call it a day. Instead, I wanted something more engaging and functional, so I designed it in a way that trams could use two different tracks for stopping and turning back, making the operations feel more dynamic. And on both sides of the terminus, I incorporated public spaces where people can take a break, grab a newspaper, or visit a small nearby shops before heading home. This way, the stop doesn't just serve as a transit hub, but also becomes a small, vibrant community space. For me, transit spaces aren't just functional, they should contribute to overall urban experience. And I think no one enjoys waiting in a dull, uninviting place, and I believe well-designed public spaces can uplift the daily routine of a city resident. That's why I wanted these grassline tram stops to offer a more pleasant atmosphere, making the everyday commute in Jubilife City feel a little warmer and more inviting. And yeah guys, if you enjoyed this content and share these values, don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the project grow and reach more people. I also discovered this bike lane asset I hadn't used before, which turned out to be perfect for this purpose as well. While it will definitely be useful for bike lane projects in the future, here I used it purely as a visual cue, reinforcing the grassline's identity at tram stops. And once the design code for the stops and routes was set, I went through the entire line, applying the same principles to create a unified and cohesive grass line experience. I also experimented with these border net lanes to add extra detailing, and I used this Celtic-inspired knot design that runs along the entire length of certain sections, giving the grass line a warm and organic aesthetic that fits its theme perfectly, I think. Additionally, I incorporated yellow warning lines at intersections where tram tracks cross the roads, helping to alert both drivers and pedestrians to the presence of trams. Overall, I really enjoyed the detailing process for this project. It felt like it added more depth to the urban environment, making it look even more realistic at times. In the city where I live, trams are a big part of public transport, and many of them run through grassy corridors and dedicated tracks. At intersections with regular roads, there are usually design elements like textured surfaces, cobblestones, or concrete sections that help alert drivers to the presence of tram tracks. And I thought that incorporating these details into my own tram system felt like a great way to bring more realism into the build. It was an inspiring project, allowing me to create a tram network that not only looks visually appealing, but also makes sense from an urban design perspective. Whether or not it's perfectly optimized, I think it turned out to be a cool addition to Jubilife City, and I hope you guys find some inspiration in it as well. Maybe even taking elements from this into your own city building projects to enhance tram infrastructure beyond its standard vanilla setup. The last section of the tracks was a bit tricky to design because of my approach to theming each tram line with a distinct look. While the shared section only includes one stop before they split again, with the next grass line stop located separately next to the hospital, I decided to get creative and start shaping the fire line's aesthetic as well. To make it work, I used red brick pavement, which I think adds a nice thematic touch to the area. I also put some thought in how the entrance of the tram stop could look, ensuring it blends well with the overall design and provides a smooth transition into the station. And for the shared section, I split the design. One half of the track follows the grass line theme, while other half takes inspiration from how I envisioned the fire line. And the result was a unique hybrid section that visually blends both lines together. And for the final loop at the end of the route, I opted for a more natural design to keep the transition looking smooth and natural, and I think it turned out pretty well. And with this final road marking placing touches, this detailing phase is complete, and now it's time for the next part, our first person tram ride. You'll get to see Jubilife City from the ground level following this route and getting a close-up look at the project in motion. Now that we've finished upgrading the grass line, it's time to hop on and take a ride through Jubilife City. We'll get a first-person view of everything we've built, from the detailed tram stops to the city vibrant streets, so sit back, enjoy the ride, and take in the sights of Sinnoh's capital. So guys, that is it for this Extras episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you'd like to see more episodes like this in the future. Let me know in the comments what you think of this format and what kind of extras content you'd like to see next. For now, I wish you all a fantastic day, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.